All right, Dan, could you turn off the lights for me, please and thank you. What did we talk about? A few things that I want to reiterate, making sure you understand, is we talked about rate of return, and that's big in the financial world. You want to know, I don't know if it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, if you calculate your rate of return, you want to know like how much did I make based on what I started with, right? Because the market could do a whole lot of things to your investment. So let's say you start with $1,000 in your account. It could be a TFSA, it could be an RSP, it could be an RSP tied to a mutual fund. Do you know what a mutual fund is? Do you remember what that is? Even if you sort of understand for now, that's fine. Because there's people that make a living trying to explain this to people, right? They're financial advisors, right? If you can get, if you can find a good financial advisor, do it. And you might like, it's going to cost me money. It costs you, but not right out of your pocket. They meet with you. They want you to invest, and they take a little share of what you make. Like let's say you make 5% interest, they might take 0.25% for themselves, which is fair. They're working for you. The more you make, the more they get. So it's kind of like it's actually a pretty good business plan, right? Because they're gonna want to make your account grow, right? So it's not like you have to sit down. It's like how much was this session? $50, right? It's not gonna cost you like that. It's just gonna cost you a little bit out of your investment. It's a good deal, right? Why wouldn't you do it? So actually meet with a financial advisor once a year. That's good enough, right? Once a year, once every 2 years if something changes. So I get printouts every month, actually quarterly, so every 3 months of my investment. And so let's say you start with $1,000 and it slowly creeps up, right? Something happens a little bit, and so this is what it does over the years, right? And then maybe it does this, right? And you're gonna be upset when this happens. But most of the time, if you have a decent mutual fund, meaning you're not putting all your money in one basket, yes, you might lose. Let's say Amazon goes south, you're invested in them, but Apple does well. It offsets that, right? Like you might lose some, but you might gain in the other, and it kind of helps you come back up. So let's say it's 5 years from now, right? You start with 1,000, you are now at, I don't know, 1850, right? So you're like, well, what? How much did I gain? Like the rate of return is where it's at, because you could have. So let's say this was your RSP account, and you have another TFSA invested elsewhere. Let's say you put in $5,000 there, and hopefully it does this too, right? It goes, general trend is up, and then sometimes it goes down, and you end up with, let's say, 5,500. And you might say, well, which account did better overall? Where should I have put my money? Should I have put more here or more there? How would you know? Ladies and gentlemen, rate of return is where it's at, right? That's where you compare. So the rate of return is subtracting these two, right? That's 850, correct? You can follow that. And you started with 1,000. You multiply it by 100. Let's figure that out. Can somebody do that for me? This one, please. And this one, say please, right? Always tell my kids to do, say please. So you subtract that 500. I'm using nice and easy numbers, right? Okay. So what do we get here? 10% on this one? And this one? Sean, did you do this one for me? Why didn't you? Putting him on the spot. 80, 8.5? 85%. Okay. Yes, you're right. 85%. which one did better for me? It's this one. Don't look at the number. It's like, oh, I've got more money in here. It's better. No, really, this one gave you more return for your money. If you would have put this in here, you would have actually gained more in interest overall. So that's the importance of rate of return. I ask you to always subtract, right, the final, right, minus the initial. That's what goes on top. We call that actually the interest you've earned later on, okay? And we divide it by what you started with. If this number had been 100%, what happened to the initial amount? It doubled, right? You almost doubled your money, right? But not quite. So if this had been 100%, you doubled your money. So the bigger this number, it could be 300%. You're like, it can't be, Mr. There's some probability you couldn't have more than 100%. That's probability, right? This is our rate of return. The bigger this number, the better. We consider that the better account, the one that makes you more money. Okay. So, and why that is important is because sometimes you might invest in a bank. Sometimes you will go on the market. I had a student that actually did this in grade 12. He told me all about it. He's like, yeah, I buy and sell shares every day. I'm like, what? I'm in the wrong business. He made quite a bit of money. That's according to his what he told me, right? But you might be buying shares, and the stock market does all kinds of crazy things, right? So you want to see, what did you start off with? What do you end up with, right? And then find the rate of return, and then compare your bank account or your TFSA or whatever to the stock market, right? Like, which one is giving me more money? I can tell you that the stock market is very volatile. Even from the beginning and the start of the day to the end of the day, it's crazy. It's just like goes up and down. Something happens in China or Ukraine or something is in the news, it affects the whole trading world. Everybody kind of panics. Some sell, some buy, right? And so you kind of have to know what you're doing when you're in the stock market. Can you get a financial advisor to do it for you? Yes. You can get a financial advisor. You just give $100 a month, and your financial advisor will maybe buy some shares in certain companies that are quite stable. If you're not a risker, if you like to risk, then you'll go into the higher risk market. And why in the world would you want to risk? Why would you want to go high risk? Why would you do that in the first place? Because you could lose your money. What's that? High reward. I always say high potential reward, because you can also lose it all, right? But there is a lot of money to be made if you do everything at the right time. I will tell you this. The stock market doing this is actually what makes someone money. Yeah. So if you buy shares when they're low, something happened to the company, maybe the CEO made some bad decisions, they kick him out. Everybody's like, I don't trust that company now. Everybody's selling. The price drops. If you buy here at a low and then watch it gain, and you're like, you know what? I think it's high enough that I'm willing to sell here, sell them all, or maybe half, and then make some money, right? That it's actually the ups and downs that make someone money, right? Because imagine you buy, if if someone's stock did this the whole time, if you buy here, yes, you make money here, but it's actually the up and down that make you more money, right? It makes you more money. You can keep buying. So my financial advisor said, keep putting X amount of dollars like into this account. We use it and we invest it in the market. So sometimes we buy here, sometimes we buy here. Like, you keep investing, and it's like overall you should be making money. If you're not making money, then obviously you should sit down and be like, wait a minute, like, it's not working for me. Okay, let's just withdraw from this fund, right? And try something else. So a financial advisor will usually have a book maybe this thick or so, and they'll be like, well, there's this. Remember when I showed you the back here, right? It's like, well, there's this Canadian small cap fund. Are you interested in that, right? And I'll say, look how it has done historically. It's gotten us, you know, the average return of 4.66%, 2.85%. We lost in this year, and so forth. But then you can kind of make your decision based on that, right? And you know what? This is probably going back. Yeah, this is probably COVID, like when COVID hit. So I can guarantee you're going to look across the board, and a lot of companies will have lost money there, right? So it's not like this should scare you, right? Like, so you're making a decision based on what happens when things are okay and normal, right? So diversification is another big thing. You want to diversify your funds. You don't want to put everything in one, and so forth. I thought we were going to do some math today. Too much talking. I get it. Let's go to, okay, go to this page, and then we're going to go back one because I have no page numbers. This is actually page 8 though. Okay, so every once in a while, let's put down page numbers so we can kind of at least have a reference point. So I want you to go to page 7 here and write a few things down. Because every once in a while on tests or ACs, I'm going to ask you kind of like check your understanding. General question, what general question does a grade 12 applied student need to know or be able to answer? This is the page, right? Why would a person tolerate risk in an investment? And we just talked about it, right? There's usually a higher return, right? And I would say potential. There's greater potential to make more money, right? There's usually a high return on the investment, and they have to give you that. They have to give you more return so that it entices you to invest with them in the first place. So that's why. What is the benefit of a market-based investment as opposed to a fixed rate investment? Market-based is shares, stock markets, right? Stock market. Let's write that down. Stock market. That's what a market-based is. Fixed rate is usually a bank, right? Or a credit union, same thing, financial institution. They give you a fixed rate usually. It doesn't change, right? And so the benefits of a stock market, it's kind of, right? Higher gains, right? It repeats a little bit, higher gains or returns. You can withdraw, right? You can buy or sell as needed. And you can sell your shares and then buy somewhere else and try there, right? You have a lot of options there. Whereas the bank fixed rate, especially a GIC, a guaranteed income certificate, that one is fixed, right? Lower risk. Basically it. Lower risk. That's basically it. It's safe, it's secure. Most credit unions have all of their funds insured, so even if they go belly up, there should be money to pay you out. Okay, there should be money there, and the insurance will cover it. What are the advantages or disadvantages of diversifying your investment? I would say let's get rid of the disadvantages because it's really just an advantage of diversifying. You diversifying your investment is a very good thing. Um, Um, if one fund loses money, right, another offsets the loss, right? So if one loses money, the other one can offset it. Um, you will not lose all the money at once. Gives higher overall returns, right? And why is that you gain higher overall? Because it allows you to put some of your money on high risk, some medium risk, some low risk, and that combination gives you on average more than just putting it in a bank account, right? So diversifying gives overall higher returns. Okay. How should your investment portfolio change as one ages? This one is big. Okay, so this is what I'm going to tell you here. So let's say you're younger, like me, low and high, right? And then you get older. There's low risk, there's high risk. Just do this for now. So when you're younger, your investment portfolio should look a little bit like this, where you have most of your assets. Wait, what is an asset? It's the same thing. Assets, funds, investments, right? Most of your money is in the high risk, right? As you get older, it should actually shift the other way. I hope this makes sense. Like that's the best I could come up with. And why would that be, right? Uh, the reason that when you're older, you want most of you in low risk is because you don't have the benefit of time to gain it back, right? Because whatever investment you have, if it drops, you're younger. Hopefully, over time, the market will gain back and you will make up the losses, right? Whereas if you're older, you don't have that luxury anymore. So you should move your assets over to low risk, right? So this is the risk, I guess. So that's all I'm going to do there. Give examples of different kinds of investment portfolios a person might own, right? So you could have example one, right? This person might have a TFSA with a bank, could have an RSP, and that's invested as a mutual fund. And sometimes you have to shop around. Like some credit unions don't really do mutual funds, but TD Trust, RBC, like the bigger banks, they have financial advisors. They do mutual funds. Okay, so you kind of have to investors group. I don't know if you've heard IG, right? They also have mutual funds and stuff like that. So you just gotta look around, right? So let's say that's an example. That could be your portfolio. That's it, right? Example two, portfolio is basically what investments do you have under your belt? That's basically what that is. Okay, so you could have a just a savings account with a bank. You could have shares in the market. You could have an RESP with RRE. What did I do there? I mixed everything up. It's just RESP, guys. There's no such thing as RRESP. RESP, let's say it's also a mutual fund, and you might have an RRSP. That's a retirement plan. Um, let's go with a bank on that one. You can just go with your bank, and it's a lower interest rate. It's safer. And let's throw in another one. Very big portfolio this person has. A GIC, and let's say it's a 3-year GIC. You lock your money in for 3 years. You can't touch it. Okay. So quite a few things going on for this person, right? So portfolios could be small, could be big, you name it, right? And you're like, where did you come up with these, right? Just go back to what we did previously. I talked about all of these. Sometimes it will say mutual fund, low risk or high risk, right? I'll tell you that, and that should kind of tell you, it's like, oh, wait a minute, this person's getting older. It says high risk. Probably not a good idea because you're already in your 50s, right? So keep that in mind. All right, so let's dive into simple interest. So this would be page 9. So you kind of skip that graph and then go to earning simple interest. This is page 9. Earning simple interest. And if you have a highlighter there, can I just say something right off the bat? I'm going to tell you what's happening. Simple interest, and then we're going to follow it with compound interest. And then we're going to set up camp in the compound interest world. So simple interest is just, it's something you need to know, but it's not, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time. But basically, there are no compounding periods when it's simple interest. Later on, you will hear compounding a lot. Okay, the amount of interest an investment earns based on the principal. Okay, based on the principal. If we graph the amount of simple interest earned as a function of time, it produces a linear. Very important because compound is going to be exponential, but this is a linear function. The y-intercept is the starting principal and the slope is the interest earned. Okay. When using the simple interest formula, time must always be expressed in years. So if given months or days, you must convert to years. Use the fraction as a way of keeping all the decimals until final answer is given. So if it's 420 days, it'd be 420 out of 365 years. That's how you turn something into years. Just put the equivalent of a year underneath it and you're good. Okay. If it's months, it would be 30 over 12 months, but then we call it years. It's 30 out of 12 years. Sure, you could get a decimal, and later on we will, but right now we'll just focus on that. 36 weeks. How many weeks in a year? Do we know that? 52. 52. Later, when we do compound, I give you all of that. I give you how many weeks and all of that. But, oh, sorry, this is years. How about this? Yeah, I guess you just know 52 weeks in a year there. There's 26 bi-weekly, right? You get paid, most of you get paid bi-weekly if you work. It's 2 every second week, so there's 26 bi-weekly periods, right? Half of 52. Okay, so here's the formula. I equals PRT. I party. Oh, no. I equals PRT, right? So I represents the interest earned or paid. Okay. P is the principal, which is also known as the original / initial amount. R is the rate of interest, and we want that as a decimal. T is time in years. Okay. Recall it in general, the future value is equal to principal plus interest earned. Okay. But to summarize that, we'll just use this. A, which is for us the future value, is the principal plus any interest you've earned. You can rewrite the formula above like this. Watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to use this formula and in conjunction with this notion that the final amount you have in your account is what you put in plus any interest you've earned. Right? I'm using this. And this stays. But what do we know? I's can be calculated using P times R times T, right? I just told you that here. So we just put in P R T like that. And if you don't mind me, I'm showing you where I got that from. There it is. So this turned into this. I got that from the formula that I gave you above. So you can use this as is, but quite often we turn that one into, you know how they both have a P, right? You can factor out that P. So you're left with 1, right? Plus RT. This is the one I used most often. Between these two, I use this one in my work. So maybe that's what you should do too, to not have too many things going there. And you might think, Mr. Dyson, when do I use this one and when do I use that one? This one focuses a little bit more on the interest you've earned. This one focuses on the final amount, like how much do you have in your account at the end of the day. And I will show you how I determine which one to use. I'll show you the examples to follow. Okay. So I don't know if you want to. Highlight. Okay. Rate of return. It's nothing new, right? It's nothing new. The only difference is here. You go future value minus initial value, just like before, divided by initial value times 100. I should say that technically there's always like this happening, right? But we could also just cut to the chase and say, hey, this subtracting these is really the interest earned divided by the initial value times 100. Sometimes this is faster, a lot faster. We don't have to do this every time. We just jump right to this one. Okay. This is important. An investment, right? A greater the ROR is better. Okay, greater ROR is better. I don't know. You might not think of it as much right now, but it is not dependent on the amount of time. You could have a greater rate of return in less time, right? You could have an investment that makes you way more money in 6 months. You could have had some money in there for 5 years, but still have a bigger rate of return with a 6-month investment. Okay, so the time has nothing to do with the rate of return, but the greater rate of return is better. Okay, using these formulas. So if you want to keep this, I can't have it on the camera, of course, but using these two formulas, and it feels like I'm ditching I equals PRT. It feels like it because I highlighted this. So I also want you to highlight this. Okay. You're good? Okay, so here we go, examples. So this is page 10. I don't know if you want to put page 10 at the top there, just to then invest $2,500 in a GIC, and that shouldn't surprise you. You should be like, oh yeah, it's just an investment. It doesn't really make a difference in our calculations, okay? At 2.5%, I tell you it's simple interest for 10 years. Calculate the interest earned at maturity. This just means at the end of the investment, right? That just means after 10 years, after 10 years have gone by. So what I do here is, if it's simple interest, I do one of these, IPRT. Okay, I do an inventory on the side. And what is given to me? The 2,500 represents the principal as the initial amount you put in. Okay, the interest rate is right, goes for R, but I don't like percentages. You want to turn it into a decimal, so divide it by 100 and write this. Okay, time is already in years, so we're good. 10 years, good to go. So the only thing left is interest. Not a big deal. So you start with this formula. Interest, which is what they're asking us for, is 2,500 times the rate times time, which is already in years. So we get 625. That's the answer. That's all they're asking for. Okay, you gain $625. You made an interest over 10 years. It's not a whole lot. You might think it's a whole lot, but 10 years to make 600 bucks. I don't know about that, but that's not glamorous. Okay. Show two different ways to calculate the future value of the investment. So the first way is just go A is equal to P plus I. The future value, ladies and gentlemen, is A. That's actually, it's asking for A, right? What's A? A is the future value. And by definition, it's the principal plus the interest. So it's the 2,500 plus the interest we've earned, right? We earned 625. So if you add this up, you get 3125. Okay, that's the future value of the investment. We call future values how much will you have at the end. Okay. Second way of doing that is using this formula that I showed you. I just need you to know that there's many ways to get to answers in this particular unit, right? So that's the principal is 2,500. We go 1 plus. The rate is 0.025. It's all from up there, right? And we multiply that by 10 years. Can I do this? I will do square brackets for this part right here, square bracket that. And so it's 2,500. And then just do the math there, right? So you go, I allow you to do this all in one shot. So you go 0.025 times 10, right? It will move the decimal over to 0.25. Add 1 to it to get you 1.25. It's okay to do that, right? So then it's really 2,500 times 1.25, which is exactly the same as you have on the other side. And you will see that, right? If it doesn't, obviously something went wrong, but they should jive. Everything jives, right? So, right, you could have had this sentence here and jump straight to what's the future value of the investment. I would have just used this formula right away, just plug everything in and just come up with that. Okay. State the rate of return of her investment. The rate of return, I will go interest divided by principal times 100, right? So we're going to go interest bit quieter, please. So we figure that out, right? So we go 625 divided by 2500 times 100. It's 25%. Okay. The rate of return for this investment is 25%. D, if she wanted 3,500 after 500 weeks, what interest rate would we need? I will say, can I say something here? Because you might fall asleep because you're like, I'm just copying here. I'm not thinking, Mr. Dixon. I want you to think. Do you notice that there's no compounding period being mentioned? No compounding period? You know it's simple interest because you know it's coming, right? On Monday, compound interest will be what I'm talking about. Here, there is no compounding, so you know it's simple interest. You know it either because the question straight out says it, or because you never see any compounding periods ever. So you know it's simple interest. Okay, I need to emphasize that. All right. If she wanted 3,500 after 500 weeks, what interest rate would we need? I know I'm in simple interest territory. So watch what I'm going to do here. The time is 500 weeks. Can I have that? I cannot have that. So I need to go 500 divided by how many weeks in a year? 52, right? You need to immediately do that. You cannot leave it in weeks or days or months. You can't. Okay. The rate, they're asking you for the rate, correct? The principal, what's the principal again? Is it this number? This is the big number, right? What did you start off with? 2,500. Remember, it's still Jen's investment. So 2,500 is what that is what it is. Do we know how much interest was earned? If she wanted 3,500 bucks, if that's what she wanted at the end, how much would I have to have gained in interest? 1,000. So, but let's say we don't know, right? We don't know this, we don't know that. When you have two unknowns, can I just tell you two unknowns? Use this one. In that case, you will never get it wrong. Right? If you have two unknowns, use this formula. If you do your I party inventory and you have two unknowns, use this one. Okay. So I know this number. I'm going to use my space wisely. I know that A is 3,500 because that's what I want. Does that make sense? Dollars and cents? 2,500 goes here for principal. And then you go 1 plus. The rate is still the same. Oh, wait. No, that's, sorry, guys. I don't know what it is, right? I determined that. That's what it's asking me for. So we go R, and what's T? It's this ugly fraction, right? And we're going to take care of that in a bit. And it's basically, right, this is multiplying that. You got to understand this is multiplying there. So I'm going to use a red pen for everything I do to undo that. This 2,500 is multiplying this whole bracket, right? So I'm going to get rid of that first. This can be, that's just 1. 3,500 divided by 2,500 gets you 1.4, sorry. 1.4 was what you're left here, is equal to 1 plus, watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to divide 552 because we have calculators where we can use all decimals. So this gives you 9.6153 and so forth. So I'm just going to call this 9.615 dot 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 R. Would that make sense? If I put the R at the end there? Because they're multiplying still, but I like to have that at the end. And what I do here is I go minus 1, minus 1. That leaves me with 0.4 is equal to 9.615 dot 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 R. And what do I need to do there? Divide both sides by 9.615 dot dot dot. Same with this side. And what do you get when you divide? So you got to use your calculator, right? You got to go 0.4 divided by, I'm just going to copy that, and it's 0.0416, or if you multiply that by 100, right? You grab your calculator, multiply it by 100, or shift the decimal, 4.16%. That's the interest rate. Both are correct unless the question tells you to state it as a percentage. If it doesn't, then that's fine, just leaving it like that. Okay. So what I did here to get to there, I just went times 100. I ran out of room there, but there's actually an easier way to do that if you catch it. I don't know. I kind of hinted towards it. How much interest would you have to earn to get from here to here? Right? That's 1,000, right? So interest is 1,000. You could have just used that I equals PRT formula to do this. Okay. So you're gonna have to practice, and I will kind of go back and forth. Okay. E. If she wanted 2,817 after 890 days at 4.25%, how much would she have to initially invest? This initially invest, what letter would that be out of I equals PRT? Ben? P? That's right. This is actually P. How much would you have to originally invest? So question mark there. She wanted this much. Doesn't really help us any here. What letter is this if she wanted this much? What letter would we give this? It's the first letter in the alphabet. This is actually A. They give me A. This is time. This is rate. Okay. So you're like, A is not here, Mr. Dirksen. Why are you giving? Well, just watch, wait for this, right? So fill in what you know. 890 days, which is 890 divided by 365. Now it's in years. Okay. The rate is 4.25%. Don't like that. I'm going to turn that into a decimal right away. Do I have two unknowns again? Technically, yes. I don't know what the interest is that I earned. Okay. And you're like, principal, isn't it 2,500? No, it's asking me what would initially have to be invested to get this much, right? So again, I do my I equals PRT inventory. I have two unknowns. Therefore, I'm going to use this one. Okay. I know A, correct? Where's my highlighter? Here. This number, right, is going to go in there. So it's not in the inventory, but remember, there's two unknowns. Therefore, I'm going to use this formula, and that goes in there. Because you can only have one unknown at the end of the day. So let's plug that in. P is unknown. 1 plus the interest rate is this. Oh, I told you I'm going to use square brackets when I insert, right? Let's use square brackets because it's this. It's the rate times the time. Yikes. It's very ugly at first, but trust me, we're going to clean it up. Just do what you know needs to be done, okay? Earlier, P was known here, right? So I divided both sides by that. It's not known here. So let's clean up, everything in here is just numbers, right? Multiplying and adding. Let's clean this up to just one number. So I'm going to go 2817 is equal to P. You know what? You figure this out. Please figure out what this is. Can you use your calculator to do this? And then I will meet you and see if you got that. Do you know how to come up with that number if I give you something like that? I would expect you to. So type. Can I say something here? Sometimes when you do this part, which is what I just did, right? Before you add the 1, you're going to get like a scientific notation here. It's going to be times e to the something. Don't worry about it. Just add the 1, right? Once you add the 1, it's going to fix that. Okay. So you adding the 1, I've done some of the questions where you get a scientific notation because it's a small number when you do this part. But as soon as you add the 1, it won't, okay? So I'm just going to put dot after it. So this is actually not too bad, right? All you need to do here, because remember, this is multiplying. All you need to do here is divide by 1.103 dot, and the same thing on the other side. 1.103 dot, right? This cancels out. So I grab my calculator, I go 28.17 divided by copy paste, right? And principal is 2537.24. Remember, dollar amounts need to have 2 decimals only. You cannot do more than that as your final answer. So you need to watch out for that. This is an example where this is the only way to do it with this formula. This one above here, if you caught it, some of you will have caught it, there was a different way of doing this one. But this one is there, you're stuck. You kind of have to. So my rule of thumb is this. 2 unknowns in your inventory, go to this one. Right? 2 unknowns in your inventory, go to this one. Okay? And it will usually involve, where's my highlighter again? So it will usually involve the fact that the 3500, right, is here. Okay? You will end up using it with that other formula anyways. That's why it's gonna be that formula that you want to use. Okay. Oh, we didn't do the rate of return. See that? Rate of return. Let's use this corner here. Rate of return. We don't have the interest just sticking out, right? Like we don't know exactly what it is. So I'm gonna take the 2817 and subtract the 2537.24. So future value minus initial value divided by initial value. So this number shows up twice, right? Oof, the times 100 will not fit. Yes, it does. See, right there, right there. So then I'll just fast forward and I'll give you that. It's 262.90. I can't see I can't tell what my own writing is saying. That's a 3. There we go. 93 divided by 253724 times 100. So when you divide that and multiply it, you got a rate of return of 10.36%. So not as good as the first one, right? At the very top, we got that one gave us 25%. This one gave us only 10.36%. Okay. And yeah, you might say, well, if the time would have been longer, maybe, but time isn't always the determining factor. Okay? It's not always. Okay. Let's get you to do some work here. I will ask you to work on this for the next little while. Applying what we know, okay? I will say this one more time because I feel like sometimes I'm not clear enough. These are your two choices. You quite often you will only have to work with I equals PRT, quite often. But sometimes you need to work with this one. And this is a bit harder. That's why I kind of focused on this a little bit more. Okay? So go to town, do your inventory, and then but read the question carefully, right? Read it carefully. I will expect you to do, because there was no homework yesterday, right? I would expect you to do this page, which is 11, right? 11, going to 12, going to 13. 13 maybe wait for me. So I won't ask you to do this one unless you want to do it. It's okay. But then there's the simple interest review, which is 2 pages. So that's 14 and 15. 14 and 15. So I will say, where am I here? Page 11. If you go to page 11, this one right here where you were working, I'll just do homework 11 to 15. You need to practice these, okay? And I will post the answer key. I will do 2 with you right now. So like another 2 goes at it, and then you should be pretty good with examples. So here we go. It's asking the simple interest rate that would be required for the investment, right? That's R. And we're simple interest territory. Don't do this later when we do compounding periods, okay? Don't do the IPRT. So this would be 16 over 12 years. I turn my months to years. The rate is what they're asking for. Principal is the 10,600, right? And the interest, that is I. Interest is 958.34. That's what you'd like to earn. One variable only, use this one. Just plug in and go. Right? This is 958.34 is equal to 10,600 times R. I don't know what that is. 16 over 12 on this side. Right? You fill it in partially. What I would do here is I would just multiply them. Right? You go 10,600 times 16 divided by 12, and you get 14,133.33 dot 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 R. Right? On this side, you have 958.34. So I multiply the numbers and just keep the R back there. Then you divide both sides by, of course, this number. Right? This cancels out. So R ends up being is 0.0678, and that keeps going. I multiply that by 100. I prefer to state my interest rate as a percentage, but it didn't ask for it, so you would have been okay with this. Just round it though. You still need to round it at that. I would say round it to 4 decimals if you want to keep it like this. Okay. The future value of the investment, you know what? I know principal, I know I, right? So I'm just gonna, some of you use the formula, that's fine, right? The other formula, that was the second way of doing that. But if I know both of them, I'm just gonna add them up. So that's 11,000. Don't forget your dollar signs. Okay. This is what you get for the future value of the investment. The rate of return, you just go interest because I know it, divided by the initial amount times 100, and I get 9.04%. How are we doing? The bell is going to probably go by the time I do this one. I'll just tell you that the principal is supposed to be 2654.87. Okay, if you did it right, that's the answer. I'm going to scan the whole thing and post it. Maybe I've even show it to you just now. There are two unknowns, so I have to use this one, right? And then figure out your principal that way. What's that? You would like to purchase the ATV worth 3,000, so that's what you want at the end, right? Yes. Thank you guys. Have a good weekend.